Connors for Good Morning America. Drug-connected crime costs our society nearly $7 billion a year. Now that means that every one of us pays to support somebody else's habit. And that's a crime.
Mike Connors, thank you. And good morning, everybody. I'm David Hartman. It's Wednesday, the 12th of October, and we're continuing our special two-hour program on drug abuse in America. As obviously, our First Lady, Nancy Reagan, is with us because of her very special concern about this problem. Nice to have you with us, for those who have just joined us. Mrs. Reagan, we just talked about young people and about parents, and we heard one of our young people say parents really don't know enough about it. What if there's a parent listening right now? You've talked with a lot of parents. What do you say to them when they look at a youngster? They don't know about drugs, they have absolutely no understanding, and they certainly have no idea what to do, where to turn to go if they have a problem. What do you tell them?
Well, as you indicated before, first of all, I think they should go to their doctor, then to the school, and if all else fails, to the nearest treatment center. But I can't put in enough of a plug for the parents groups. They're the most supportive group I know of. They become very knowledgeable, and what one of the children, I shouldn't say that, one of the young people were saying, it's very important that parents become more knowledgeable about drugs. They learn to recognize the symptoms and the signs and so on. And they don't, by and large, now. They certainly didn't in the 60s when it first started. But their parents groups can be supportive of one another.
And they can be formed in any community.
In any community. You can call up the people in your neighborhood and say, I'd like to form a parents group.
And they work.
And they work.
All right. If you want to write directly to Mrs. Reagan for any kind of drug information, or to be referred to a place in your area where you can get help, or get some advice, more advice about how to start one of these parent groups, write to Nancy Reagan, the White House, Washington, D.C., 20500. Again, Nancy Reagan, White House, Washington, D.C., 20500 for any information, and particularly about the parents groups. And in a few minutes, we'll be talking with 3 people who got treatment to help them overcome their drug problems and get their lives back together. And we will find out that there are more and more places to get help, as Joan London tells us now. Joan.
Well, David, I'm at a cocaine hotline center in Summit, New Jersey, where they get plenty of cries for help here.
You know, I mean, it's a horrible thing. You know, I've never known anyone, you know, I've known people that have gotten involved with drugs, but I've never, believed stories, that it could really destroy your life, but my God, it can.
Is that how you feel right now?
Oh, yes.
Now, that's what goes on here on a daily basis, and people here try to help in any way they can. And the trend, fortunately, seems to be spreading. Also, later in this half hour, we are going to learn about some steps that various employers are taking to help address their workers' drug problems. David?
Thank you, Joan. And it's 3 minutes after 8, and Steve Bell right now has all the news down in Washington. Hi, Steve.
Hi, David. Good morning, everyone. There are conflicting signals now from the nuclear arms talks in Geneva. The chief Soviet delegate quoted this morning as saying his country's not trying to break off negotiations. Yesterday, you'll recall, the Soviets were quoted as threatening to cut off all arms talks because of the planned deployment of U.S. medium-range nuclear missiles in Europe later this year. Former Japanese Prime Minister Tanaka has been found guilty of accepting more than $2 million in bribes from the Lockheed Corporation. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Jim Laurie reports.
The conviction of Japan's most controversial former prime minister may have major consequences for the shape of Japanese politics. For Kakuei Tanaka has long held a preeminent role in the running of Japan's ruling political party. His backers form the largest power bloc, and even under a cloud, Tanaka has backstage managed the selection of 3 of the last 5 Japanese prime ministers. Tanaka's conviction should now greatly weaken that influence. But while down, he is not out. A long appeal process follows. He has resisted giving up his seat in Parliament. And at the very least, the case is an embarrassment to the present Prime Minister, Nakasone, who came to office with Tanaka backing. If Tanaka has his way, he'll still be in his seat in the Diet when President Reagan addresses a joint session of Parliament here during his visit next month. Jim Laurie, ABC News, Tokyo.
Also this morning, North Korea is denying now any responsibility for last weekend's bombing in Burma that killed 16 top-ranking South Korean officials. Defense Secretary Caspar Weinberger has flown to South Korea, where he'll head the U.S. delegation at tomorrow's funeral for the victims. In Texas, a gunman on a 130-mile rampage across southeast Texas last night killed 5 people, including a highway patrolman. Authorities say Eliseo Moreno then took 6 hostages before surrendering to law officers. The hostages released unharmed. An Air Illinois commuter plane crashed in a rainstorm 60 miles southeast of St. Louis last night, killing all 10 people aboard. That plane on a flight from Chicago to Carbondale, Illinois. And the government says that one of the most far-reaching indictments in U.S. history has linked reputed mobsters in 5 cities to a conspiracy to skim millions of dollars from Las Vegas casinos. Robin Groth has that story.
Anthony Spilatro is out on $100,000 bail this morning. Arrested yesterday, he is alleged to be the link between Las Vegas and organized crime in Chicago, one of 15 indicted by the grand jury. They are charged with the hidden control and management of 4 Las Vegas casinos and the distribution of almost $2 million illegally skimmed from casino profits and siphoned to alleged organized crime families in the Midwest. The skimming operation occurred between 1974 and 1979 at the Marina, the Hacienda, the Fremont, and the Stardust casinos, all operated by the now defunct Argent Corporation with funding from the Teamsters Central States Pension Fund under the direction of alleged organized crime leaders. All those indicted will be returned to federal district court in Kansas City. If convicted, each could receive up to $80,000 in fines and 40 years in prison. Robin Groth, ABC News, Las Vegas.
Talks between striking teachers and the school board in Chicago have broken down, with the strike in Chicago now in its 2nd week. More on that story from Chris Bury.
Striking Chicago teachers demanding a 10% pay raise say they won't resume negotiations until the school board makes a new offer.
Our members' patience are wearing thin, and we are not going to accept 1/2 of 1% as a settlement to this strike.
We cannot give what we do not have.
The school board wants teachers to pick up health costs or agree to bigger classes in return for a pay raise. But the teachers refuse, and the strike, now in its 2nd week, shows no signs of ending soon.
I'm concerned about the length right now of the strike.
We want our kids back in school.
Some Chicago teachers and parents have organized alternative classes during the strike, but most of the city's 435,000 public school students are still enjoying an unscheduled vacation, one they may regret come June when school days lost to the strike will have to be made up. Chris Bury, ABC News, Chicago.
And the Philadelphia Phillies took Game 1 in the 1983 World Series last night, beating the Baltimore Orioles 2-1 in rainy, foggy Baltimore. Fred Wymore has highlights in this morning's sports report.
Game 1 of the 1983 World Series began with fireworks in the skies over Memorial Stadium, which were soon replaced by rain showers, although the game was never delayed. President Reagan was on hand, safe and dry, behind a glass enclosure. The first ball, that was thrown out by Baseball Commissioner Bowie Kuhn, presiding over his final World Series. Baltimore jumped to a 1-0 lead when platoon player Jim Dwyer, who hit only 8 homers during the season, got one off of Philly starter John Denny, who had given up only 9 homers all year. The pitching battle between Denny and Scott McGregor was evened up in the 6th when World Series veteran Joe Morgan homered for the Phils to make it 1-1. The game winner came in the 8th when Gary Maddox, who hit 4 home runs during the regular season, put one over the fence off McGregor. That ended the scoring in the battle of the solo homers. The defensive play of the night came when the very next batter, Bo Diaz, had his home run taken away by John Lowenstein, who went over the fence in left field to make the catch, saving another Phillies run. A couple of rookie right-handers scheduled to pitch Game 2 tonight, also in Baltimore. ABC's coverage starts at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. Steve?
Thank you, Fred. That's news at 8. David?
It's after 8 right now. Dave Murray has got all the weather for the country. Hi, Dave.
Hello, David. Good morning, everybody. Stormy weather will be the rule for the central and the eastern U.S. on this Wednesday. Here's the latest view from the satellite We're looking in color, and we're looking down 22,000 miles from space, and we're going to go in a little bit closer of the nation. And it's easy to see all of the action is over the eastern two-thirds of the U.S. Showers and thunderstorms with the strong storms this morning now over Arkansas, Louisiana, and eastern portions of Texas. Also another batch over Cape Hatteras, North Carolina. Simply in this whole area, take the umbrella today. Give yourself a little extra time on the wet roads. Out west, it's just a very pretty day. The temperature map shows another sharp contrast, warm south and east, with a lot of cold air pouring in from the north. What will happen in the next 24 hours? The maps go into motion. The east will stay wet, clearing and cold in the Midwest. Only some coastal showers moving into the Pacific Northwest by tomorrow. That's a look at the nation. Now here's what you can expect today.
It'll be cloudy today, temperatures in the low to mid-70s, and a chance of a little rain around at times. Tonight, cloudy skies, a little light rain, and temperatures in the mid-60s. Tomorrow, we'll have a chance of some showers and thunderstorms in the area. Temperatures will run generally in the upper 70s.
That's our latest weather report. A little bit of stargazing in 30 minutes. David?
Thank you, Dave. 10 minutes after 8 right now. When someone is high at work, we all have to pay for it.
Hi, I'm Kathy Lee Crosby for Good Morning America. In 1980, as much as $90 billion was spent on illegal drugs in this country. Now, that's an incredible waste of hard-earned money. But more importantly, it's an incredible waste of our most important natural resource, you. So please, get high on yourself.
Aquarock, beautiful crystal clear tableware, very right for romantic dining. And being made of tempered glass, it's twice as resistant to shocks as ordinary glass. Certainly a dishwasher won't hurt it. Aquarock, affordable, crystal clear French design tableware that's perfect for breakfasts, casual lunches, or buffets. And for romantic dinners. Aquarock.
You can LaChoy anything.
A salad?
LaChoy salad with light, crisp LaChoy bean sprouts.
A family?
LaChoy your family with quick, nutritious LaChoy chow mein. So good so many ways, there's just no end to what you can LaChoy.
A party?
LaChoy a party with crunchy LaChoy egg rolls.
LaChoy makes Chinese food. Swing American.
LaChoy something tonight.
Your Lincoln Mercury dealers have a commitment.
And they've really got it going.
It shows in advanced technology that really gets you going. The mid-size 1984 Mercury Topaz with front-wheel drive and room for 5.
Plus excellent handling and stability.
We've got a terrific selection, both 2-doors and 4-doors.
Mercury Topaz.
It has so much standard equipment, you'll be amazed at its low price.
The Lincoln Mercury commitment.
To quality and customer satisfaction.
Get it going for you at the sign of the cat.
What a crowd. Everybody wants to see these great Maytag ranges. Beautiful.
Of course, they're Maytags. Look, no crevices to catch soil. Easy to clean.
Of course, they're Maytags.
Talk about rugged.
Of course.
They're Maytags, I know. Boy, do I know. Oh.
Maytag ranges, microwave ovens too. The difference is Maytag quality.
Minutes after 8 right now. People who are addicted to drugs often get high before going to work or even at work if they can find a way to do it. It's the same for people who have a serious alcohol problem. Needless to say, this all affects job performance. 3 former drug or alcohol abusers are joining us right now. Tom works for the telephone company here in New York, Judy for the post office in Buffalo, New York, and Lou is a policeman on the West Coast. Tom and Lou have asked us to conceal their identities, and certainly we're doing that. Tom, starting with you, when did you start? What kind of drugs did you use?
I started at a young age, 12 or 13 with alcohol and marijuana. I progressed through barbiturates, speed, and I ended up using heroin on a daily basis.
How did it affect your work?
I would say my work was characterized by inconsistency. My absence record was horrendous, and I was just into getting over, more or less, to facilitate my addiction.
What did the company do to try to help you?
They referred me to a rehabilitation center and encouraged me to get involved in 12-step recovery programs.
How are you now?
I've been drug-free for 18 months, participating in the Fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous, and for me, it's an ongoing recovery program. It's a lifetime.
Always is, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think for everybody. How did you start using drugs, and how did it affect your life?
Well, like Tom, I started drinking when I was younger, but then I went to a doctor for real nervous symptoms. You know, I had a rash and chest pains, and he prescribed Valium. And when the symptoms went away, by that time I had come to become dependent on the Valium, where I thought that they helped me cope with everything. And when one doctor said, you can't have any more, I would go to another. And then I went to the uppers and back to the downers and back and forth.
Judy, how would you describe what it did to you both at work and at home?
It made my life totally unmanageable. I lost all regard for any responsibility. I was neglecting my son. My job performance was terrible. I was never at work. I would leave early if I did go in. I would call in sick all the time, you know, or I would come in late. I had a really negative attitude. You know, I resented authority. I was in financial debt, really bad.
How did you know to get help? What did it take for you to turn around and say, I'm in trouble, I got to get help or I'm finished?
Well, because of my bad sick leave record, the Postal Service has a policy that anyone with abuses sick leave is to be referred to the PAR program, which is the Program for Alcoholic Recovery. And they never mentioned to me that maybe I had a drug or alcohol problem. They just said maybe I had a personal problem and they could help me with it.
Lou, first question to you. What drugs did you use? And describe what all these drugs did, whatever you used, to your work life and your home life.
Well, basically, I started as a teenager. I used to drink a lot. Basically, because I was a jock, we used to go out and drink. But while being a policeman, I would drink with the boys, and I would use pot and occasionally cocaine. I started with the drugs, cocaine and pot, because I realized that the alcohol was inhibiting my work. My judgment was impaired. I was becoming very fearful of making decisions, the heavy life and death situation, so I'd stay away from that type of situation.
What about off-duty? You're a police officer. And by the way, I'll tell our audience that we've disguised your voice so that you won't be identified in any way. What about off-duty? You get any trouble off-duty because of drugs?
Most of my trouble as a policeman has come off duty. I would never get into trouble while on duty. I enjoy my work very much, but off duty I would let loose, and as they say, party hardy, I would really get out of hand.
What did it take, as we asked Judy, to turn yourself around? What did it take for you to say, I need help and I'm going to go get it?
I hit bottom. I realized at one point that I was completely turned around. My personality was nothing like it was years before. And I was completely ashamed of what I had turned out to be as a human being.
You ever arrested?
On 2 occasions I was arrested for raising hell in different areas of the West Coast.
How straight are you now?
As an arrow. I do no drugs, no alcohol.
Judy, Tom, how worried are you that you'll start again?
Not at all. I won't start today.
And it's a day at a time?
Yes, it is.
Tom?
It's one day at a time. I only deal with today. I can't project into tomorrow, but I feel as if I apply the principles of my recovery, then I have a shot at staying drug-free.
Tom, Judy, Lou, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
And we'll be back. When we come back, what General Motors and some other companies are doing to help solve drug problems in the workplace. And there are loads of them. 19 after.
Every face is different. So is every hair. The designs of Alexandre Paris are sculptured, creative, and natural looking. Soft and alive, Alexandre Paris's new look is glamorous, irresistible, and sophisticated. Alexandre Paris, Fair Oaks Mall.
Do you have cold feet?
Uh-huh.
Well, now you can take off your heavy wool socks. Take off your full-length flannel nightgown. Introducing the Chatham Automatic Breast Warmer. It's better than an electric blanket because it provides comfortable, graduated warmth for your body and added warmth at your feet where you need it most.
And when your feet are warm, you're warm all over.
Gloria, is that you?
The Rest Warmer by Chatham. When your feet are warm, you're warm all over.
Washington, if you're looking for a news anchor with a wealth of knowledge, we have someone to show you.
Television news is not about entertainment. It's about information. And that's what a news broadcast, to me, ought to address. What people are going through on a day-to-day basis. And how you can give them information that will make that daily struggle a little bit easier.
Renee Poussaint on News 7, our credibility shows.
For the first time in his life, he's struggling, having a hard time in math. He needs help. He can get that help with the home computer from Texas Instruments. It has more educational cartridges than any other computer. They challenge, encourage, make learning fun. The home computer from Texas Instruments. It can give your child a head start in school that could last a lifetime.
Day 21 right now. Drug abuse costs American business and industry more than, are you ready for this, $16.5 billion a year in lost job productivity. And we end up paying for all of it. Peter Bensinger runs the business that, among other things, helps employers to develop drug and alcohol abuse prevention and treatment programs. Before establishing this company, Bensinger DuPont and Associates, Mr. Bensinger was head of the government's Drug Enforcement Administration. Roland Austin is director of the General Motors Employee Assistance Program, it's called. It's a joint effort of GM and several unions, including the United Auto Workers. Good morning. Nice to have you with us for the first time. Peter, good morning. Welcome back. Peter, how do you describe how much drug abuse there is in the workplace in terms that make sense to us?
The problem is enormous, and you can take a figure that would relate to productivity, which you showed $16 billion, related to accidents, which is over $40 billion, related to the number of employees affected, which could be as high as 10 million in the United States. You're looking at a problem that reaches every level of the workplace, not just the assembly line workers, the executives. You're looking at a problem that affects our ability to produce goods effectively, competitively, and healthily and safely.
Do you have other examples of the drug and alcohol abuse that is caused not only in companies but in the whole communities?
Well, I think this is one of the key issues that has got to be faced. Certainly General Motors is faced up to the reality of this with their large number of employees, but if parents are talking about the problems of drug abuse for their children, those same parents are working every day, some of them as supervisors. They need to be better trained, more aware of the health and safety hazards that can occur at work. And you find damages that could range from a train being derailed to an airplane crash to somebody falsely operating a forklift truck.
And those are examples. I mean, there was a train crash, there was a plane crash, there was a forklift. Those are all real examples.
They're real examples happening every day in the United States.
Mr. Austin, General Motors, what is GM doing? What's the goal of this program? How does it work? How successful are you?
David, we've been kind of in this business for a number of years now, and we think that we are making some headway in cooperation with the UAW in a very comprehensive joint approach to dealing with people who have problems. And we are a microcosm of society, and we see it surfacing in the workplace. We're pleased with what we're starting to see. We have the ability in the workplace to identify these individuals, as some of the people have said today, maybe raise that bottom by looking at job performance, measuring job performance.
So instead of letting people go out of the company, you're trying to save human beings.
Absolutely.
Not only for the business sake, but for the individual sake.
Certainly, we have a tremendous investment in these people. Most of these people that we deal with have at least 10, 15 years of service with us.
Mr. Austin, thank you. Mr. Bensinger, thank you. Good to have you with us.
Well, we're pleased to be here, and I think the First Lady certainly deserves a note of acknowledgement in fighting this problem.
Good Morning America continues after more news and weather.
The Morning Report is brought to you by Heckinger. For guaranteed savings and satisfaction, there's no place like Heckinger.
It's 8:25 in Washington and 69 degrees under rainy skies. I'm John Harder with the Morning Report. The District Police Department finally responded to questions about the bulletproof vest it's buying. News 7's Paul Berry had charged they are ineffective and overpriced. He has the latest report.
In front of the media, other manufacturers and police officials, both the point-blank vest and the American Body Armor vest were shot at. Both performed about the same. Afterwards, Chief Turner said he decided on the point-blank vest because of its reputation, but had this response when asked why another local manufacturer with as good a reputation never received a response to his letter to make the vest.
Here's a letter from Progressive Apparel, another local business company 20 miles outside of the city, written to Officer Alan Harper.
Officer Alan Harper doesn't run this police department. I run this department.
But Alan Harper works for you, doesn't he, sir?
I run this department.
Does
Alan
Mr. Harper work for you, sir?
Yes, he does.
Did he bring this letter to your attention?
No, he did not.
And this was in December of 1982, when they said they could have made the very same vest for the same price or less. Why weren't they considered?
I can't answer that. It was never brought to my attention.
At that point, many of the manufacturers on hand were angry, and they got into the act, asking why there was never any competitive bidding as in other contracts. Leonard Rosen of Protective Apparel Corporation put it this way.
Every Kevlar is tested. Manufacturers are not foolish people. We're not putting out vests on the street that are going to fail. That's the question. Right. We did not have a chance.
That's the basic question. Why wasn't it open for public bidding?
Why wasn't it open for public bidding?
They aren't. We'd like for the chief.
I made a decision as chief of police. If it's wrong, then take it out on me. I selected point blank. It was on the GSA schedule, and that's where the department is headed. Chief, you wanted to know.
Is it possible to go to the drawing board to at least review your decision to see if you've got the best information so that you could buy the best vest at the best price, sir?
I said the decision has been made. I stand by my decision with the point blank Philadelphia version of the vest.
And so, the chief says it will be the point-blank vest, one that will stop specified rounds, but is not state-of-the-art, and still, according to a number of manufacturers, overpriced to the tune of more than $90,000. Those same manufacturers still claim that the city is not getting the best vest for the best possible price, and they say D.C. police officers' lives still hang in the balance. Paul Berry, 7 on your side.
Game 2 of the World Series gets underway at 8 tonight. It will be carried on TV7. The Orioles will have a chance to catch up. They lost to the Phillies 2-1 last night. Jim Dwyer homers to right. The ball carries into the seats, and it's Birds 1-0.
See what I mean? One of the biggest.
Joe Morgan gets it back in the 6th. His home run ties the game at 1-1. That homer is McGregor's first mistake in the 8th. Gary Maddox then comes to bat, and Maddox hits the game-winning run. It's the first homer of the 2 World Series he's played in his career. Coming up, Fred Weiss tells us how long this rain will be with us and what effect it will have on tonight's game.
My husband went to Heckinger to get some fertilizer 3 hours ago.
I knew they'd have it. They've got everything. And they guarantee the lowest price. Look, Martin Senior Home Decorator and Home Styler quality latex paint for indoors and out. 1,200 colors. $5 off each gallon. And every rubber set brush, 25% off. I love this store.
For guaranteed savings and satisfaction, there's no place like Heckinger.
If you see Ralph at Heckinger, send him home.
JKJ Chevrolet. Hey, Johnny. I read in the Washington Post where JKJ Chevrolet is the most requested phone number in the area for car sales and service. I guess everyone knows JKJ is #1.
Well, Joe, we're in good company. The Redskin ticket office was listed also. The only difference is we got plenty of Chevrolets, and y'all are all sold out of season tickets.
Hey, keep up the good work. Maybe you're going to be sold out of Chevrolets.
We're trying, Coach.
When you're talking Chevrolet, it's JKJ.
Quick peek at the weather. We have a frontal system near Washington and a good deal of clouds. A little bit of rain and drizzle. We have drizzle around. It's beginning to break up, but there's a frontal system off to the west with a good deal of precipitation. That'll be moving toward the Washington area and bring us some showers by tomorrow. Today, cloudy, low to mid-70s and rain. Tonight, cloudy, mid-60s and some light rain. Tomorrow, cloudy, upper 70s, showers and thunderstorms. Drizzle right now and 70 degrees. John?
Thanks, Fred. That's the news. I'm John Harter, and you make it a good day and stay dry.
I'm Burt Reynolds for Good Morning America. You know, there's a reason why dope is called dope. And I'll let you figure it out. When I was raised during the 50s school, there wasn't any dope around. If there was, we didn't know what it was. But in the early 60s, when I was an actor out in California, I had a lot of friends who were just getting into that thing. Most of the guys and gals that were doing it every day that I know now are much slower and are really kind of space cadets. If you want to be that way, just go ahead and do it. It's your life, it's your body. If you want to walk around bumping into walls, that's up to you. As someone who cares about this country and humanity and people, and young people especially, I beg you not to do it. Thank you.
Burt, thank you. And it's 8:30, and I'm David Hartman with our First Lady, Nancy Reagan, who is with us this morning for a whole 2-hour look at drug abuse in this country. Ms. Reagan, you have been part of the entertainment industry from the inside. You worked in it, and now, of course, for many years, you've been outside of it looking in. What's your impression of how the whole entertainment industry represents drugs and alcohol?
I think the industry has a tremendous, tremendous influence and therefore a tremendous responsibility that goes with that influence. And it's interesting that now I usually ask the questions of the kids. Now they're asking me, why is it that television and movies glamorize drugs? And that's a very difficult question to answer. But I would like to say to those comedians who make jokes of drugs, it's not funny and it's a cheap laugh.
In a few minutes, our entertainment reporter, Joel Siegel, is going to look at all the talent that is wasted because of drugs, and we'll hear some parents' questions about their children using drugs. Joan.
Good morning, David. I'm going to be talking with the man who founded a national hotline number to help people who have cocaine abuse problems.
Joan, thank you. We will see you then. It's 32 after 8, 8:32. And now Steve Bell has all the news down in Washington for us. Hi, Steve.
Hi, David. Good morning, everyone. The White House says the U.S. will keep plugging away for agreements on limiting nuclear arms, no matter what the Kremlin does. Yesterday, Soviet negotiators in Geneva reportedly threatened to walk out if the U.S. goes ahead with the planned deployment of medium-range nuclear missiles in Europe. Today, however, the chief Soviet negotiator in Geneva is quoted as saying that they want to continue talks. Anti-nuclear protesters in West Germany plan mass demonstrations this weekend to protest the planned deployment of those new U.S. missiles in NATO countries in Europe. As Hal Walker reports, the opposition to nuclear warheads in West Germany has been active for several years now.
The so-called hot bottom has been brewing since 1979 when the government agreed to accept new American mid-range missiles. Organizers of the autumn action say they are pledged to nonviolence, but that the hour is late and they must use every weapon they can. In the coming week of action, demonstrators have targeted American military facilities at Bremerhaven, West Berlin, Ramstein Air Base, and the U.S. Embassy in Bonn. For months, they have offered training in passive resistance, defense against the superior numbers and weapons of the police, and tactics designed to harass authorities and block mobilization. Only the most optimistic anti-war activists believe the coming weeks of protest will stop missile deployment. But they will keep the issue high in the German consciousness and set the stage for possible overreaction by authorities, which could lead to an intensification of already strong anti-missile sentiment here. Hal Walker, ABC News, Bonn.
In other news this morning, a threatened strike by Eastern Airlines' 5,800 flight attendants is approaching. Negotiators for the attendants say they're not optimistic an agreement can be reached before a strike scheduled for midnight tonight. In Boston, former Massachusetts State Senator Melvin King has a chance to become that city's first black mayor. As a result of yesterday's election in Boston, King will face City Councilman Ray Flynn in a November runoff. And a consumer group is asking the federal government to take a long look at some television cartoon shows that it claims are no more than long commercials. The group, called Action for Children's Television, says the cartoons pay off at the toy store because the kids want to buy what they see.
Because when I look them on TV, they look so cute and everything, and I've seen them in the store sometimes and everything. It makes me feel like I want them so bad.
The consumer group wants the government to count programs like this one, Herman and the Masters of the Universe, as commercials, or take them off the air. And finally this morning, the nation's #1 fan, the nation's first fan, was on hand last night for the first game of the 1983 World Series. President Reagan's motorcade pulled up at Memorial Stadium in Baltimore shortly after a spectacular fireworks display. He was on hand in the owner's box as the Philadelphia Phillies defeated the host Baltimore Orioles 2-1 in that first game, but there's still plenty to go for those Orioles. ABC, of course, will have live coverage of Game 2 in Baltimore beginning at 8 tonight Eastern Time. Now a look at the weather with Dave Murray. Dave, we're going to have more rain there tonight?
As you know, if you've looked outside in the last hour or so, it's raining like crazy in Washington and Baltimore. I'm hoping that it will ease up a little bit. I think they'll get the game in, though there could be a delay tonight. If you live in the central or eastern U.S., you can tell a gloomy wet weather day is on the way. I'll have all the weather information right after this.
Teddy misses you, Daddy.
Sweet talking daddy's girl, how good you make me feel. Trucking down the interstate, shoulder to the wheel.
Rocky misses you too.
Your words will keep me company when I'm on my own. Daddy's on the move again, but Daddy's close to home.
Guess who else misses you?
Reach out.
When you can call anywhere you want, anytime you want, that's reach out and touch someone. That's AT&T.
Good morning, I'm Dave Murray. What a mess for the eastern two-thirds of the nation today. Showers and thunderstorms with the heavy thunderstorms running from the Ohio Valley back down into southeastern Texas. But to the west, you can see another very pretty day. Temperatures at midweek, 40s and 50s to the north. It's cold, but it's warm to the south. 90s down in the desert southwest. That includes Los Angeles. You'll be up to 95 degrees today. And if you have clear skies tomorrow morning about 1 hour before sunrise, look to the east to see a gathering of the planets. First, low on the horizon is the planet Mercury, then center on the brightest object, Venus, with the two nearby stars being the red planet Mars and the star Regulus. That's a look at the nation. Now here's what you can expect today.
We're still in for a couple of days of pretty wet weather around here. Today will be cloudy, low to mid-70s with some rain. Tonight will be cloudy, temperatures in the mid-60s, and still a chance of light rain. By tomorrow, cloudy, upper 70s, but we may have some shower and thunderstorm activity.
That's the forecast. Have a good Wednesday. Back to you, David.
Thank you, Dave. 22 minutes right now before 9 o'clock. Joel Siegel looks at drugs and the entertainment industry after these words. 22 up.
It's the All-American Cheese Jamboree.
Come on! America loves cheeseburgers, make mine cheddar, please. Or how about an omelet with real Monterey Jack cheese?
The All-American Cheese Jamboree is going on at your grocer's right now.
Hey, come on! Swiss, Colombian, American. Sandwich, sure, please. America loves pizza with real mozzarella cheese.
America, you love that real cheese taste. So come on to your grocer's for the All-American Cheese Jamboree.
What sizzling attitudes does Linda Gray reveal when she talks about sex? Inquiring minds want to know.
I want to know.
As romance developed between Teddy Kennedy and this Ain't Elsewhere star, this week's National Enquirer tells you. Can stifling a sneeze kill you? What 6 secrets can help you climb the ladder of success?
It's in the Enquirer.
Why did George Burns say I can't to marriage? Find out in the Enquirer. Over 100 features for people with inquiring minds.
Like me.
Kodak introduces the extraordinary Kodamatic trim print instant color film. Unlike the ordinary instant print, the extraordinary trim print lets you lift off the image to capture the color just the way you like it. And now look how slim I am. I slip easily into places the ordinary bulky instant doesn't fit. So you can keep me in style here in your album with your regular pictures. You can trim me. Watch it. And I'm so thin you can put me where you couldn't put an ordinary instant picture. You can show me off. You can do all kinds of things with me that you can't do with an ordinary instant picture. Here I am, with the new Kodamatic trim print instant color film.
Anyone can do extraordinary things. But he didn't tell you trim print is only for Kodamatic instant cameras.
He didn't tell him it's only from Kodak.
What?
He didn't tell him it was only from Kodak.
Extraordinary.
Thank you. Trim print, the extraordinary new instant color film from Kodak.
20 minutes of 9. Some people worry that drug abuse might destroy much of the whole next generation. Our entertainment editor, Joel Siegel, remembers the toll it took on our last generation. Good morning, Joel.
Morning, David. My generation, and you remember him. He played guitar. Left-handed, he played it upside down and backwards. The music he made was inside out and right side up. It caromed and ricocheted. It sang and it screamed. You didn't listen to his music, you experienced it. He played the best guitar I ever heard. But Jimi Hendrix was something more than a guitar player. He was a junkie. The summer of 1969, Max Yesker's farm near Woodstock, New York. 500,000 people listened to Jimi Hendrix play the sun up. He made history that morning. A year later, he'd be dead. Overdose, age 27. 16 days later, Janis Joplin. Overdose, age 27. Once we thought drugs exploded your creativity, expanded your mind. But they showed us the other side. Jim Morrison, dead at 27. I don't know why they were my age. I'd met Janis in San Francisco, went to college with Jim Morrison. When the language of my generation was music, they made the music, and I don't know why. Maybe because when you're young, you're invincible. You don't believe you'll ever die. And when you sell 10 million records, when you're courted like a king, when you raise your fist and bring 500,000 people screaming to their feet, how can you be anything but invincible? But you're not invincible. It is. Pink pills, blue capsules, white powder, and even the king is dead. Is the incidence of drug use higher in the arts? Probably not. Why then so many? Because everything these people do makes headlines. And when the headlines holler their deaths, we are all so sad. But maybe we should be angry instead. Maybe that will stop this. How dare they take a life? How dare they cheat us out of their songs, their laughs, kill their art that made us feel so alive.
Well, you'll be lonely. You'll be so lonely you could die.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you. Powerful toll.
18 before 9. Next, Joan London live at a National Cocaine Hotline Center. We'll be right back.
What kind of people drink Sanka? Tugboat captain, Case Plume.
Yes, sir. Maneuvering a giant cargo ship takes steady nerves. And too much caffeine doesn't help. One wrong move, and I've got tons of scrap metal on my hands. That's why I look forward to relaxing with a cup of Sanka. It really tastes great. Without the caffeine I don't need. For me, that's a perfect fit.
Sanka brand decaffeinated coffee for people who love coffee but not caffeine.
This new Jell-O snack's gonna make a big splash with the girls. I juiced up Jell-O with orange juice. Wow!
It's Jell-O gelatin, create a sensation.
It's easy. Instead of cold water, add orange juice to Jell-O brand gelatin. Set and serve.
It's juicy, it's light, and Mom makes it dynamite.
Make it Jell-O gelatin, create a sensation. Jell-O.
At International Carpet's Designers Sale, save on a magnificent selection of wall-to-wall carpeting. Choose from famous brand names like Lee's, Bigelow, Cabin Craft, even 100% wool Corstans, all in designer colors with prices starting as low as $11.99 per square yard, padding and installation included. Give your home a fresh new look during the Designers Sale, now at International Carpets, Tyson's Corner, Bailey's Crossroads, Rockville Pike, Aspen Hill, and Springfield.
If you're looking to save money on a new Datsun, look no further than Rosenthal Datsun or Connecticut Avenue Datsun. The last of the 1983 cars and trucks have just arrived. Over 200 to choose from at end of the model year clearance prices. Now, at America's largest, Rosenthal Datsun Honda and Bob Rosenthal's Connecticut Avenue Datsun. But remember, when these are gone, there'll be no more at these lower 83 prices.
Right now, clinics are popping up all across the country to help people who have drug abuse problems, and the numbers of other drug information services are growing too. Joan, this morning, is at one of these places that offers both help and information. Joan.
Well, David, I'm here with Dr. Mark Gold. He is the founder and director of 800 Cocaine. Now, that's a national toll-free referral service. This is a 24-hour service, and people have been taking calls here all morning. And, Doctor, you are also the director of the Fair Oaks Hospital here in New Jersey, which treats a lot of drug abusers. What are the most frequent calls, the most frequent questions you get?
Well, there are really two groups of calls. There's calls from people about loved ones, and they say things like, how do I know if somebody's using, or how can I help someone who's using? And then there are calls from users themselves. And
am I addicted?
They ask, am I addicted? Right. Things like this.
Just came in.
So you'd have a 35-year-old man from Chicago who makes a good living, about $25,000 a year, who's gone to college. He started snorting cocaine, meaning intranasal. He's using intranasal. His use is increasing. Now in excess of $200 a week, has now used $300 a week, moving up.
So it's the cost that is the reason why he wants to quit.
Well, he says that the only factor stopping him is cost or access.
All right, now, but he considers himself mild.
Mild. Here he is mild, and he has chronic physical problems, chronic physical deterioration, loss of energy, chronic insomnia, sore throats, nosebleeds, runny nose, lost sex drives, and heart palpitations.
And listen to the rest of this. Jitteriness, anxiety, depression, panic, fears, irritability, paranoia, compulsive behavior. It goes on, and it says he can't turn it down.
That's right.
When offered.
He thinks he's addicted, and he's calling us to ask whether we think he's addicted. Here he has chronic physical problems, chronic psychiatric problems, social problems, financial problems, work problems, family problems, and he thinks he's addicted, and he's asking us, what do we think?
And he terms himself mild.
And he says he's mild.
Workers would know. They'd see him leaving work early and compulsive behavior.
They'd see maybe straightening of the tie or doing something with the hair, inappropriately sniffing all the time, having medical problems, and generally not being interested.
He's asking for help, though. If somebody out there wants help, what do they do?
I think the first step in getting help is to say, I have a problem and I'm going to do something. I'm just not going to sit by and debate whether I'm going to get help. I'll either call 800 Cocaine, and that is a good first step.
You refer, no matter where they are in the country, you'll give them a referral to where they can go in their area for help?
In all 50 states, in all major cities, we have self-help group referrals, physician specialists in substance abuse, and inpatient programs where that's necessary.
And you feel they do need help. This is not something you do on your own.
It's not something you do on your own. The only thing you do on your own is get over on yourself. That is, fool yourself into thinking that you can stop. You can't. You need help, and the only way to truly stop is to make a commitment and make that first step.
All right, Dr. Gold, thank you. Remember that again is 800 Cocaine, C-O-C-A-I-N-E. That's how you dial it. There are people here manning these phones 24 hours a day. David?
Joan, thanks. Dr. Gold, thank you very much. And it's 12 before 9. A doctor answers parents' questions about children and drugs. After these words, they'll join Mrs. Reagan and me.
No matter how you cut it, your hair needs Vidal Sassoon. Shampoo to cleanse. Protein remoisturizer to condition. Finishing rinse to seal and protect. 3 simple steps to keep your hair shining, manageable, healthy looking. No matter how you cut it. Because if you don't look good, we don't look good.
Harley and I were talking about Thanksgiving before, and we were... What do you mean boring? I found it very informative. Anyway, I told him all about Miles Standish and John Smith and the Pilgrims, and... It's history, Harley, it's important. Well, really, he couldn't care less until I told him what Alpo's cooked up just in time for Thanksgiving. Alpo turkey dinner. Looks like Harley finally found something he is interested in. New Alpo turkey dinner. Soon after you serve it, it's history.
I like bread and butter. I like toast and jam. I like the taste of Sunbeam bread. It's my favorite brand.
Well, now I like soup and sandwich. I like Swiss and ham.
Well, I like the taste of Sunbeam bread. It's my favorite brand.
I like the taste of Sunbeam.
Yeah.
Delicious Sunbeam bread.
Sunbeam bread.
I love family reunions. I do too. Martha, Harriet. You've never changed. Actually, dear, we have.
Kraft real mayonnaise?
You always told us to use this mayonnaise.
Now we know better.
We've discovered that Kraft looks creamier.
It's specially blended over 3,000 times.
How's it taste?
Here.
Tastes creamy, too.
Now let's tell Mabel, Charlie.
And Clara.
Clara, maybe.
Nothing tastes creamier than Kraft Real Mayonnaise. Now you know.
10 minutes of 9 right now. Drug abuse is a disease that a lot of people, not just the abuser, would like to deny. It's a disease that affects friends and family of the abuser. In fact, in most cases, a family member, the experts tell us, actually enables the abuser to continue his or her behavior in one way or another. You're about to see a group of actors illustrate what I'm talking about.
My ex was an alcoholic, the worst. Drinking is the last thing my boy would do.
Most kids drink today. It's part of life now.
You're wrong, Henry. It's not part of our kids' lives. Anyway, I'm changing the sheets on my son's bed. I find a magazine hidden under the mattress. Guess what's in it? A girly magazine? Pictures of marijuana. I fold out the whole deal. Is he smoking this stuff? You're overreacting. He's only 12 years old.
Now, what you just saw is a part of a television program called The Chemical People, for which Mrs. Reagan is the narrator. It is a two-part series that is going to appear on PBS Public Television next month on November 2nd and November 9th. And joining Mrs. Reagan and me now, two parents who have a lot of questions about drug abuse. George Hill is from Monroeville, Alabama. It's a town of about 5,000 people. Mr. Hill is the father of 4 children. Joyce Rawlings has 3 children of her own and a foster child besides, and she is from Alexandria, Virginia, which is a suburb of Washington, D.C. And Dr. Mitch Rosenthal is back with us. He is president of Phoenix House. That is the largest multi-service drug treatment program in the United States, and he is with us this morning to answer the parents' questions. Joyce, nice to have you with us. George, good morning. Joyce, go ahead. You're first.
Okay. With the growing awareness on drugs now, as far as prevention is concerned, what would be some of your suggestions in with a parent sitting down talking to their child about drugs without arousing their curiosity, making them want to test it out?
I think a lot of parents are worried just about this point, that they're going to, do more harm than good. But the fact is that drugs are everywhere in the culture. You can't turn on a television set. You can't go to a movie theater. You can't open a magazine. Kids are going to be exposed. So I think that a parent would not be doing his or her duty if they didn't talk about drugs and feel comfortable in talking about drugs with their kids. And that means really talking very early, not waiting until you have a 13, 14, or 15-year-old on your hands, but talking about this with a 7, 8-year-old, the way you talk about food and diet, the way you talk about movies, the way you talk about sports, making it a very natural thing.
George?
All right. What percentage of children that have been on drugs for a while, what percentage of these children go back to the drugs?
George, that really depends on how much time the kids have been able to spend in treatment and get help. It depends how deeply they've been involved in drugs to begin with, and I think it fundamentally depends on their family. Where there's a family commitment to see a youngster get off drugs, and the family is going to move in with that child and let that kid know that they care, that they're there for him or for her, and that they're going to see them through the whole process of treatment. Our success at Phoenix House is increased greatly when we have family involvement.
Joyce?
Along those same lines regarding peer pressure and the youth with drugs, What are some of the things you say to a child whose friends are involved with it and they see them functioning normally in school? It hasn't ravaged their body as yet, and they're not seeing things that are not there. How do you make that child understand that this is wrong and this can be detrimental if they don't see the effects right up front?
It takes a willingness on a parent's part to go over this many, many times and not to try and necessarily get it the first time. Because after all, if a kid has a friend, we all want to see our friends in the best light. And so we tend not to look at their faults. By the time a kid is on the nod, so to speak, or by the time a kid's grades are failing, or by the time a kid can't throw a basketball anymore, that kid's in really big trouble. But if you as a parent are informed about drugs, and you can talk about the fact that drugs do affect different parts of the body, of different parts of the mind, and go over this, your child will understand it and will begin to see the more subtle signs in his or her friends.
Mrs. Reagan.
Mitch, if you had one piece of advice to give to parents, what would you say?
I guess I'd say hang in there. We're really winning this fight. It's changing. And the work that you have done, Mrs. Reagan, has just been sensational, bringing parents all over the country to feel that they can do something, and they are. Groups like the National Federation of Parents, Pride, we have mobilized hundreds of thousands of parents across this country now, and it is changing the attitudes of schools, it is changing state legislatures, it is changing laws, and it is changing the way kids feel. It's a chain reaction, and we've got it going, and I feel a tremendous momentum and very encouraged by it.
Doctor, thank you. Joyce and George, thank you very much. And I'll be back with Mrs. Reagan in a moment. And again, we will tell you if you want some help, where you can write or call together. And we'll be back 4 minutes before 9 right now.
How to Build a Fire by Joan Collins.
It takes something black,
Something brilliant.
something cool, something hot, something scoundrel. My favorite fragrance. It's sophisticated and elegant, and there's something sexy about it, too. Then, when something happens, and it will, we always say, it wasn't me, it was my scoundrel.
Scoundrel from Revlon.
Somebody here report a fire?
We hope that this special program has helped you in some way, whether you happen to have a problem with drug abuse or not. Maybe it increased your understanding of this problem, how it affects all of us across the country. Maybe it gave you an idea of how you might be able to help a loved one who has this problem. Again, if you don't know where to turn for help or information, you may write to Nancy Reagan, the White House, Washington, D.C., 20500. Nancy Reagan, the White House, Washington, D.C., 20500. Mrs. Reagan, thank you very, very much. And I say that on behalf of all of us across the country for helping us to understand more. Thank you.
Thank you, David, for making it possible.
Great to have you with us. And to all of you, make it a good day today.